is Tzadi Vav. We're a little behind. It's going to be a race to the finish because of this. But we are up to Tzadi Hey and Bet. Hopefully those who are not on will hear it on Zoom. So we are up to Tzadi Hey and Bet, 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabbi Avo. So we said yesterday that Sanhedrin, at the end of his life, he was not successful in conquering Jerusalem. He went back to his home and he was killed by his 2 sons. Now, there's a very, very strange pasuk in Yeshayahu that we're about to quote. It talks about Hashem, we'll see in a second, looking like a barber and having this crazy story, which, again, we're going to see the whole story. So says the Gemara, 4 lines in the bottom, Amar Rabbi Avo. Said Rabbi Avo, Imali Mikre Katuv, if we didn't have this written in a pasuk, Ef Sharla Umro, we would have never have imagined this following crazy scenario. This is the pasuk in Yeshayahu. It says, now quote, the Yomahu, on that day, Yigalach Hashem, Hashem will give a haircut, will shave, B'ta'ar haschira, we'll say it's a rented razor. And we'll see what does it mean, rented razor. Be'evar Nahar, across the river, Evrei Nahar, B'melech Ashur, the king of Ashur, Et Harosh, God will shave his head, V'sar HaReglaim, and the hair of his legs, V'gamet HaZaken Tispeh, and also his beard will be swept up in this. So crazy pasuk says like Hashem's going to give a haircut to the king of Bavel. What in the world does that mean? Says Rabbi Avo, Atad Kudshabrichu. What happened was, after Sanhedrin was unsuccessful in killing Yerushalayim, all his men died. He's going back home with his 2 sons. Hashem came and dressed up like an old man. In Milei Kigavra Saba, dressed up like an old man. Amrlan, he said to Sanhedrin, Ki azalta the Gabi Malchim Mizrachu Ma'arav. Right? You're going to go back to all the kings of the east and the west who you've conquered. They all gave you their sons. We said yesterday, 45,000 Bnei Melachim, and you got them all killed. How are you going to answer this mob that's going to come attack you? Amarle, he said, I have no idea. I'm living in the same fear. I have no idea what I'm going to say. So Amarle, so he said to Hashem, or to this old man who turned out to be Hashem, Hichinavitz, what should I do? Amarle, he said, well, Zil, top of Tzadivav Amid Aleph, go Vishani Nafshach, change yourself. Right? Change your appearance, change who you are. Maybe you'll get out of this. So he said to him, Maya Shani, how do I change myself? Amarle, well, the easiest way is you get a haircut, right? Sanhedrin had long, curly hair, cut it all off. Amarle, so he said, Zil aitili maspera ba'agazech anna. Go, this is Hashem speaking, the old man who is Hashem, says to Sanhedrin, go get me a scissors and I'll give you a shave. So he said, where am I going to get scissors from? We're in the middle of, the desert walking back from Yerushalayim. Amarle said, well, we're on the third line of Tzadi Vav Amid Aleph. Hashem dressed up as an old man, said to Sanhedrin, Olahu Beit Avaiti, there's a hut coming up, there's a house, go to that house and get us scissors. So Azal, so he went to the house. Ashkechtinu, he found there were not people in this house. There were Malachi Asharet, who in Milei Gavri, where we know from Avraham and elsewhere they can do that. These were Malachi Asharet who looked like humans. The Havi Katachni Kashiata, they were grinding kashiata. Rashi's kashiata are pits of dates, which is a very low-class thing, right? Meaning you eat the date and then you've got the pit and you grind it up so that any kind of nutrients, I guess you would then soak it, and any kind of nutrients would come out of it when you're really poor, like this is the bottom of the barrel. And it's very hard because they're hard dates, right? Hard pits. So he said to these people, Amar Lahu, Havuli Maspera, can you give me a scissors? Can you give me a way to cut my hair? Amarle said, well, we don't really have anything right now. Listen, or this is actually the other way, is they said, well, you got to work for it. We're not just giving out free scissors over here. So, Techon Chad Griva de Kashiata, grind a 1 griva, griva is a size, a sa'ah, of kashiata, but nitan and we'll give you a scissors. So now, again, obviously there's a lot of symbolism. The Gemara doesn't talk about it, but of Sanhedrin, of grinding the dates and etc. So he grinds 1 measure of dates, and they give him a scissors. So he comes back to the old man, who is Hashem, with his scissors. But as he was doing this, he was working, it was a few hours, it got dark. Now, it's very hard to get a haircut in the dark when you don't have a light. So Amarle, so Hashem, the old man said to him, Zol Aiti Nura, bring me a flame. So then, again, he had to then go get a flame. Also by Tinur, he went and got a flame. But how did kanafachle, right? A flame was a small ember. He had blowing on it to oxidize it and cause the flame to go up. He was blowing on it. Itli benura bedikne, the flame caught onto his beard and basically burned off his beard. And then Hashem was also Geizia, the Resha B'diknei. Hashem went and shaved his hair and his beard, and the pasuk also says his legs, but we don't quote that here. And that's the reason the pasuk says that I'll cut off the hair, v'gamet hazakan tispeh, and the beard will also be swept up, because really the beard of Sanhedrin was swept up by the flame. Amar Rav Papa says, Rav Papa, there's a saying, I don't really understand the saying too much, but the people say, Girerta la'arma'a shapirle. If you burn, gererta is like a scorching, a fire to a arma'a, to an Aramean, is good for him, because atle le'nura b'dikne, put a fire in his beard to burn it up, you'll never be full of making fun of him. Meaning if that's how some understand that basically the more humiliated someone gets, the more you could do to them. So basically, this was a humiliating and crazy event that happened with Sanhedrin, keep saying it with Sanhedrin, that is based on this pasuk in Yeshayahu. Now says Gemara, let's continue the story. He got his head shaved off, and Azal Ashkech Dapa Mitevuta de Noach. Again, very strange midrash. Sanhedrin is walking along and he finds this great archaeological find, a piece of wood from Noach's Teva. I don't know how he knew it came from that. He somehow knew this was an original piece of wood. Amar, he said, wow, this piece of wood is the great God that saved Noach from the flood. Right? The whole world was destroyed. Noach was the only one saved. He clearly had some in with the God of wood. And this is a piece of wood from that God. So he said to the wood, interestingly, if that man, meaning he always referred to himself in third person, if I go and I'm successful and I get my kingdom back and people don't kill me, I will sacrifice my two sons to this piece of wood. Now, the problem, of course, for Sanhedrin is that his sons were the two survivors who were with him. So Shamu Beno, his sons heard this, and they killed him because they knew it was him or us. And that's the pasuk in Lachim, which says, "He was bowing down to Nisroch. Now, Nisroch is a weird god, but the word Nisroch comes from the word Neser, which means a beam, right? A plank of wood. So he was bowing down to the plank of wood. Adar Melech v'Shar Etzer banav hiko b'charv, and his two sons Adar Melech and Shar Etzer killed him with the sword. So that was the end of what's his name, of Sanhedrin. Now, we're going to get a little bit distracted again, and we'll see why in a second. It says in the pasuk, "Vayichalek alehem laila hu v'avadav hikum." Right, this is when Avraham was fighting with the kings, with the 4 kings versus the 5 kings. It says they split them up, they divided themselves up by night, and they killed them. It says Gemara Rabbi Yochanan, what happened was Alayla is not night in this case; it is a malach. Oto malach shenizdamen lo Avraham laila shemo. The malach that came to Avram that helped him fight the war of the 4 kings against the 5s was named Laila. Shenemar, as it says in Eov, Halayla Amar Horegever. The Laila said a man is given birth, meaning, but Laila was a name of a demon or a spirit or in this case a malach. And Rabbi Yitzchak ben Avcha Amar says, no, that's not why it says Ve'echalek alehem Laila, that Laila came to them. It means Shasai imo ma'aseh Laila, that Abraham did with the enemies, with the kings, a Maaseh Laila. What does Maaseh Laila mean? It means killing them. Shenemar, as it says by Sisro, Min Shamayim Nilchamu Kochavim. The stars will fight from heaven, Mesilotam Nilchamu Sisro, from their pathways. They're going to fight with Sisro. So you see that the Laila is actually a reference to fighting a war, and that's what the Laila was for Avraham. Says Rish Lakish, I like that pshat better. Taba de Nafcha. The pshat of Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, right, who was Nafcha is bellows, right? He was a smith. He blew. Is better me the Bar Nafcha. Remember, Rabbi Yochanan was always called Bar Nafcha. Rashi says here probably because his father was a Nafcha, which makes a lot of sense. There's other explanations, but that the pshat of Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha is better than Rabbi Yochanan's pshat. Anyways, remember, going back to Avram now in the fight with 4 kings against 5, it says by your dof Adan, that Avraham chased the armies, right, of the four kings up to Dan. What does it mean up to Dan? What happened to Dan? We're in the third to last narrow line. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, well, because Kivan Shabbat Otot Tzaddik al Dan, when Avraham reached, he was chasing after them when he got to Dan, which is in the north of Israel, referring to Dan, the new Dan, basically, the Dan in the north. Tashash Kocho, he weakened, he lost his strength. Because he realized in the future that his descendants were going to worship Avodah Zarah in Dan. Remember, as it says by Yeravam ben Nevat, Vayasam et echad bebeit el, et echad natan bedan. Remember, Yeravam made two agalot, two whatever temples, we'll call them calves, to set up so that people wouldn't go to Beit HaMikdash, and he put one in Beit El in the south, and south of his realm, and one in Dan in the north. Ba'af Oto Rasha, now going back to Nebuchadnezzar, who remember we say is a descendant essentially of Sanhedrin, that Rasha, he only beat Bnei Yisrael. He only got strong when he came to Dan, because that's where the sin of Bnei Yisrael is big. Shenemar, Midan Nishma Nacharat Susav. From Dan, we will hear his horse snorting and making noise. Amar Reb Zera. Now, says Rabbi Zera, very interesting Gemara as well, as all these Gemaras are. We are at the second of the intermediate lines, which is the second of three. Said Rabbi Zera, even though there was a message sent from Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, is how our Girsa, the Girsa in the Gemara in front of us is Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, but you see on the side, at least mine on the side, changes to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. But Afagav the Shalach Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi min Tzivin. Even though Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi sent a message from the Tzivin, the following very important message. First of all, he's Harub Zakein, Sheshachach Talmudo. Be cautious. Don't make fun. Don't treat someone poorly if they're an old person who forgot their learning, but they once knew it, machmaton so, because they got, because of onus of life, of sorrow, of illness, of persecution. Just because someone forgot it, treat them well. So be careful with that person. Don't treat them like an Amaretz. That's one thing that Rabbi Shimon Levi told them. And second of all, he said, he's harub b'varidin Rabbi Yehuda. You should be careful when you slaughter an animal that you cut the veins in the neck, the vridim, or the jugular veins, like Rabbi Yehuda, because if you don't, it'll be a treifa. Obviously not related. And the third thing he said was, he's harub b'bnei amei haaretz. Be very careful in the way you treat the children of Amaratzim who are scholars, right? Shemehem tetzei Torah. Because don't get this crazy idea that, someone is an Amaretz, they come uneducated, you can demean them, put them down, treat them like, second-class citizens, because the Torah, it's our tradition that Torah comes from those people. They have just as much capacity to be the next leaders and learners of Torah as people come from the highly educated Talmidei Chachamim. So it says, even though that's true, you are allowed to tell them some bad things. Ki ha-milta modina, like the following thing, we'll see what the following thing is, you can tell them. And we'll see what the following thing basically tells you that, a lot of what happens to people happens because of their ancestors. So although you should treat them with respect because they can be different than their parents, you still do tell them that a lot of things that happen because of what happened with your parents. What's this thing that you tell them? So it continues the Gemara now at the end of the first wide line. It says in a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, Tzaddik ata Hashem, you are a tzaddik God. Ki ariv elecha, because if I fought with you, right? Meaning, how can I? It's Yirmiyahu saying, how can I fight with you? You're obviously going to win, God. Ach mishpatim adaber otach, but I'm going to ask questions. I still have problems with you, God, says Yirmiyahu. Madua derech rishaim tzalecha. Why is it the path of rishaim is so smooth? Why does it seem like the most wicked people have the easiest time in life? Why is it shalu kol bogdei bagad, that those who are all bogdei bagad, those who are boged, they rebel, are shalu, they're secure, they live in shalva. Nitatem gam sharashu, they plant, they harvest, they take roots. Yelchu gam asuperi, their trees grow and they make fruit. How could it be that those who are so evil have such a success in the world? So this was Yirmiyahu's question to God. So Maya Hadulay, what did Hashem answer him? And then if you go 2 psukim later, God says to him, Ki et raglayim ratzta. The reason that they are successful is because they ran with their feet, biyalucha, and they went, be'ich tacharat ta'ich tatchare et hasusim. How do they keep up with the horses? Ube'eretz shalom ataboteach be'ich taseh b'gaon hayarden. You can't, you're secure in a land of peace. but how are you going to do in the Yarden? Meaning you're going to be successful when things are easy and there's no challenges, but when you get challenged, how are you going to be successful? What is that? What is Hashem answering him? Says the Gemara, Mashallah Adam Echad. It's a parable to a person. Sha'amar said, he's boasting in Shul, Yachol ani larot shalosh parsot lefnei asusim bein b'tzei hamayim. I can run faster than the horses. I'm as fast as can be. I can run 3 parsot, that's 12 mil if you recall, even in bad ground, in swampy ground where you don't have good footing. So that's what he posted that I'm so fast I can run for a kilometer, not kilometer, I can run a marathon faster than the horses. This damein lo ragli echad. One day he comes into a person running in front of him, right? A ragli is a runner, and runs the fanav shlosha milim b'yabasha. He runs 3 mil, which is not 3 parsa, right? 3 mil on dry land, on the track. Binilad, he gets exhausted, he gets tired, he can't even do it. So he's boasting he can do 12 mil in the swamps, and he can't even do 3 mil on dry land. Amru, so they say to him, look, you're obviously not able to do what you said you can do. Ma lifnei raglikach, in front of a runner, not even a horse, right? You get tired out. Certainly in front of a horse, you would get tired out quickly. A horse has more stamina than you. Umash l'shet milinkach, after 3 mil, you get tired. For sure, shalosh parsaot, you're not going to be able to do it. Achat kama v'kama. Umaba yabashakach, and you get tired on the dry land where it's easy to run. Then b'tzei hamayim, if you're running in the swamps where your feet get sucked in and it's hard, alachat kama v'kama. So basically, what God was saying is that, people think they're so great and they're so wonderful, they hardly can do anything in order to in front of me. And says Hashem to him, Afata, so Hashem said to Yirmiyahu, Ma bischar arba pesiot sheshilamti loto rasha. You know why wicked people like Nebuchadnezzar are successful? Because they've done good things too. And for example, Nebuchadnezzar ran 4 steps for Hashem. And that's why he was paid back with this tremendous reward to be successful in the army and to kill the world and destroy the Beit HaMikdash. But he ran for 4 steps, and we'll see what the case is in a minute. So atat tameya, and now you're astonished about how much reward is going to happen. Kishani mishalem schar la'Avraham Yitzchak b'Yaakov. When I one day, God says, come to pay back reward to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, shratzu lefanai kisusim. They ran in front of me like horses. They never stopped. They didn't run 4 steps for Hashem. They ran their whole lives in front of Hashem's ratzon. Alachat v'kama v'kama. The reward is going to be so much greater. And that's why it says later in Yirmiyahu, "L'neviim nishbar libi." About the Nevi'im, my heart is broken, Bikirbi. Rachafuko atzmatai, my bones are all shaking. Ish shikor. I'm like a drunk person, kigever of ruyayin, like a person who's got wine. Ibnei Hashem divrei kadsho, from Hashem and His words, meaning the ultimate reward for these tzaddikim will be unimaginable. So the answer that was basically he was getting was that Nebuchadnezzar was successful because he had run 4 steps for Hashem. Not 4 steps, 4 paces, I guess, 4 steps, yeah. So ask the Gemara now, what are these 4 steps that Nebuchadnezzar ran? We are up to, I don't know where to say.
Where does it say that God says this? It says Azaru, it says Adruhu, it says they. The Gemara often talks how other people respond. Even Rashi doesn't mention that God is having this conversation with him. It's in the plural all throughout the dialogue.
Okay, I mean, I don't think that's correct, but I guess
I don't know. Rashi says it too. Rashi says it's they are responding. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm just asking. How do you? Why? Where do you
mean Rashi? I don't know. We should look where Rashi is, but because Yirmiyahu asked God personally, that's Yirmiyahu's direct.
Where do you have? But the Gemara, the Gemara and Rashi, they say they are responding. So what's the source that this is God is having this dialogue with him, and not other people for instance, the people it might be challenging? Amrulo. So
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but
throughout the dialogue, it's my adaruhule. Then it says amrulo. So it's all in the plural. And then later Rashi also says the same thing. It's plural. I'm just asking what's the
I don't see the Rashi referring to. So maybe we have different
Rashi.
I
mean the Rashi's adruhule le Yirmiyahu. That's Rashi.
Yeah, what is it? So what does that have to do with
No,
Hashem
I'm
and
just saying
Yirmiyahu?
where's the source that this is, he's having
Because
a
Yirmiyahu,
conversation with
again,
God.
I doesn't, I don't think, I don't know for sure. Yirmiyahu asked God directly, so I am assuming God's answering Yirmiyahu. But again, it doesn't matter so much whether it's Hashem speak. I mean, it's the psukim that Yirmiyahu quotes, right? It's a nevuah, but I'm not sure it matters so much to me whether it's single or one.
Oh, okay, but I'm just asking what's the source, that's all.
Yeah, so I understood it from the psukim. But either way, so says the Gemara now, we are, I don't forget the place, it's like 18 or 20 lines from the bottom, words in the end of the line. It's very hard to place ourselves in these Gemaras. But Hani Arba Pesiot Mahi. When we say that the whole reason Nebuchadnezzar got, this reward that Hashem was saying, or whoever was saying to Yirmiyahu that explained the success of the Rishaim, is because he ran 4 steps in front for the covenant of Hashem. What happened then? Says where, well, if you look, there's a very strange psukim in Yeshayahu. I mean, everything today is strange, right? Dichtiv, it says the Etahi at that time. This is right after, by the way, this is right after the story in Yirmiyahu of Yeshayahu, sorry, Lametet in Perik Lamed in Yeshayahu. Sanhedrin is killed, right? And so the next, we just quoted that all yesterday. The next psukim are that at that time the Etahi. Shalach Merodach Baladam. Oh, actually, there's a little more that happens in between. Yeah, what's his name gets sick? Chizkiyahu gets sick, right? And he's lying on his bed to die. And the Navi Yeshayahu comes to him and says, "You should get better." Remember, we've talked about the story many times. But it says right after that, after Chizkiyahu got sick and he's starting to recover, that Be'etahi Shalach. Well, he's not recovering yet. Be'etahi Shalach Merodach Baladan B'Maladan Melech Bavel Svarim. That at that time, Merodach sends books to Yeshai to the king, what's his name, Chizkiyahu, to sort of maybe give him comfort. So what's happening? It says where Mishum Kichala Chizkiyahu v'Chazak, because Chizkiyahu got sick and he was getting better. Shadar le Svarim Mincha. Why does that mean? Why is Mirodach sending him gifts? It says where, yeah, in fact that's the reason, because Ledrosh, because he wants to investigate Hamofeta Shahayam Baretz, the miracle that happened, right? Yirmiyahu. Chizkiyahu got sick. Most of the time, as we've discussed before, when you get sick in those days, you die, right? But Chizkiyahu didn't die. He recovered. It was miraculous. We've had other Gemaras. Remember, Yeshayahu came to him and said, you didn't have children. He had to have children, right? The whole discussion we had in Brachot, etc. But a miracle happened. Damar Reb Yochanan, as Reb Yochanan said, not only was a miracle happened that he got better, but Otoa Yom Shemet Bo Achaz, the day that Achaz, Chizkiyahu's father, died, Shtei Sha'otaya, the whole day was 2 hours, right? Because Achaz died and it got dark because they didn't want, Achaz was a Russia, and they didn't want to have a big funeral and ceremony for him. The sun set, right? So the sun set early, but Chichala Chizkiyahu v'Yitzbach, when Chizkiyahu got sick and it was time for him to get recovered, right? So he needed help from quote unquote the sun, the light, to get better. God gave him back those 10 hours, meaning the whole day basically that was taken away from Achaz was given back to Chizkiyahu, and this was an incredible miracle. And this is based on a pasuk which says, also in that parak in Yeshayahu, "Hineni meishivet sel ha'ma'alot." I'm going to return the sel, the shade from the ma'alot, from the steps, which is the sunshine. Asher yardam b'ma'alot Achaz. It went down with the steps of Achaz b'shemesh achoranit eser ma'alot. It went back 10 ticks, and we're saying here 10 ticks means 10 hours, basically. But Tashav Hashemesh Eser Ma'alot B'Ma'alot Asher Yardan, the sun returned. So basically, Yechizkiyahu got miraculous sunshine, and everybody heard about this, and he recovered. So this other king, Merodach, we'll see more about him in a second, sent a message. Amrali said, "My hi." Amrali said, "What's going on? Why, the sun is all of a sudden up in the sky for too many hours?" So Amrali, they said to Merodach, "Well, it's because Chizkiyahu chalash v'itpach." It's because a miracle happened in Yehuda. Chizkiyahu got very sick. He was deathly ill, and he miraculously recovered. So Amar, so Merodach said, "Wow, Ika Gavra Kihai, there's a kind of person like this in Yehuda who's miraculously, God cares about him and is getting him well. I gotta have a relationship with this guy. I gotta be friends with him." So he wanted to send him a letter. So Katvule, so he wrote in the letter, and now this is a quote from the letter: Shlama lemalka Chizkiah. Peace unto the king Chizkiah. Shalom lekartad Yerushalayim. Peace to your great capital, your city of Yerushalayim. Shalom le'Eloha, and peace, greetings to your God, your great God. So that's what he wrote in the letter. Now, Merodach Baladan was the king, but Nebuchadnezzar was the Safrei de Baladan Havi. Nebuchadnezzar was the Sofar is like, what do you call it?
Right.
The scribe, right? Or like the attendant, like the secretary. It was a very important job. He was the one who usually would write the
Right.
letters and communicate. But he shite the Lahavi Hatam that time, for whatever reason, Nebuchadnezzar was taking a day off. He was at the doctor. I don't know. He wasn't there. So Akiata, when he came back to the castle or whatever, Amarlo, he said, "Hechli kativnu." So you're writing this important diplomatic letter to Chizkiyahu. What did you write? Amarlo, and they said to him, "Hachi katvina." This is what we wrote. Amarlo, he said, "Whoa, that's ridiculous. You can't write a letter like that." Karitale Eloharabba. You call Chizkiyahu's God a great God, right? Hashem, and you wrote in the end, and you write in the last thing. Amar, he said, Al Katuva, this is what you're supposed to write. Shalom Rabba. You start with God. Peace, greetings to God. Shalom the Karta Shalem, then the city, and then Shalom the Malka Chizkiyahu. The right way to write it is if you really believe that Chizkiyahu's God is so great, you should write to him first. So Amalei said, "You're right. I'm sorry you weren't here." But as we had a couple weeks ago, now with Pinchas, Karyana digarte habilabi paranka. The one who reads the letter, who says raises the issue, should be the one to carry it out. So therefore, Nebuchadnezzar rahit batre. He ran after the messenger to catch the messenger to change the message to show more respect to God. Says the Gemara, Kedirayad Arba Psiot, after he ran only 4 steps. There are other Girsot, some say 3, but our Gemara consistently says 4. When he ran after 4 steps, Ata Gavriel v'ukme. Gavriel came and stopped him. Amar Reb Yochanan said Reb Yochanan, it's a good thing. Because El Mali Laba Gavriel b'hamidov, Gavriel hadn't come and stopped Nebuchadnezzar, Lahaya Takana l'Sanim, so you saw there would be no takana for the enemies, which of course is a euphemism, meaning for Bnei Yisrael. Because clearly, when Nebuchadnezzar was rewarded, based on this psukim in Yirmiyahu, for running these 4 steps after the messenger to protect the covenant of Hashem, if Nebuchadnezzar had done more than that, it would have been too much and he would have won and destroyed everybody. Okay, so that is the mashal that we have from Yirmiyahu and Nebuchadnezzar. Now, before we get back to Nebuchadnezzar, which we will later today, 4 lines from the bottom, it's a very strange name for this king. He was called Mirodach Baladan ben Baladan. Right? What was his name? His father was Baladan. His name was Mirodach Baladan. Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense. My Baladan ben Baladan. Amri, so it says the Gemara, what we said was Baladan Malkahavi. His father, Baladan, was a king, but he developed some terrible sickness. Vishtani ape v'habiti kalba. His face turned into the face of a dog. He developed some, deformity that he looked horrific, and he couldn't be king anymore. So they took him off the throne, Haviyativ Bre'al Malchuta, and they put his son on his throne. Kativ. So when the son, who respected his father, would write his name, Havikativ Shmei, he would write his own name, but he would be saying, I'm Merodach, but my father's Baladan, and I am basically functioning for my father. So he called himself Merodach Baladan, and of course his father was Ben Baladan. Ushmei Davua. So he wrote Baladan Malka, Hainav Diftiv, and this is what the pasuk in Malachis refers to when Malachis criticizing the people, right? Bein Yichabed Av, Eved Adonav, a son respects his father, a servant his master, Ba'ayeh Kabduni, right? Where are you Malachi is criticizing the people. But what is Malachi referring to? Ben Yichabed Av, 2 lines from the bottom, Hainad Amran, this is the son, Merodach, Baladan, who respected his father, Baladan. And what's Eved Adonav? What is a servant who shows deference and covet for his master? This is based on a different pasuk. Again, these are all sort of interconnected agadatot about this topic of, we started with Sanhedrin, but now we're getting to Nebuchadnezzar. And because it says in Yirmiyahu, at the end of Yirmiyahu, B'chodesh HaChamishi, in the 5th month, which is Av, Dasar l'chodesh, in the 10th day of the month, which is, they had 10th day of Av in this version. He Shnat Shas Rishana Melech Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel. It was the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar. Ba Nebuzaradan Rav Tabachim. Nebuzaradan came Amad Lefnei Melech Bavel Yerushalayim. He stood in front of the Melech Bavel in Yerushalayim. By Yisrov at Beit Hashem, at Beit HaMelech, and he burned down the Beit Hashem and the house of the king, right? The terrible Chorban. Turn to Daf Tzadi Vav Amud Bet. Says Gemara, but that doesn't make any sense. What do you mean Nebuzaradan stood in front of the king of Babel in Yerushalayim? Misalek Nebuchadnezzar, the Yerushalayim, Nebuchadnezzar never came to Yerushalayim. Achtiv, because it says in the pasuk in Melachim, Vayalu to al Melech Bavel Rivlata. Right, they took the captives and they brought them to Melech Bavel and Rivla. So clearly, Melech Bavel stopped in Rivla and sent his army to Yerushalayim. So, Imam Rabbi Yevozu Antuchia. This is referring to a place called Antuchia or Antioch, wherever that is. So how could you explain that it says that Nebuzaradan stood in front of the Melech Bavel in Yerushalayim and killed and destroyed it? So Rav Chisda, Rav Yitzchak Bar Avdimi, these two Amoraim had different pshatim. Chan Amar one said, well, the reason is Of course, Nebuchadnezzar wasn't there, but Nebuzaradan had demut yukno hayta chakukalo merkavto. He had the picture of his master, of his king, Nebuchadnezzar, on his chariot. So he always basically was as if he was standing in front of his king. The Chanamar one says no. In fact, it's not that he had a picture, but it's that he lived. Ema yitera haitelo mimenu v'doma kamisha omeid lefanav. He always had the presence of his king Nebuchadnezzar in front of him, and everything he did was as if he was doing it in the presence of Nebuchadnezzar. But either way, you see clearly that although Nebuchadnezzar wasn't there, Nebuzaradan respected him and obeyed him and felt like he was present. Amar Rava. Now, going back to Nebuchadnezzar and destruction of Yerushalayim, says Rava 6 lines or 7 lines from the top. When Nebuzaradan came to destroy it, ta'un tlat mea kudnaita. He had 300 kudnaita is a donkey, right? 300 donkeys full of narga de parzela, of iron axes, right? A narga is an axe, parzela is whatever metal they use. The shalit beparzela that can cut other parzela. I mean, he had stone that can cut other stones, steel or whatever it was, bronze, whatever they had, iron, I guess, I don't know what they had. Shadalei Nebuchadnezzar Nebuzaradan, this was all given by Nebuchadnezzar to Nebuzaradan for his army. They came to Yerushalayim and none of it worked. Kulu balituhu chad dashad Yerushalayim. They were all swallowed up by one gate, one door of Yerushalayim. Shenemar pitucha yachad b'chshil b'chalefot yalomun. That they can hit it with the hatchet and it went and it won't, and they hit it with the hammers and it won't give way. So they were unsuccessful. He took all the weapons that he came with in Buzaradan and he couldn't break down the doors. He was going to turn around and go back home. Amar, he said to himself, Mistafina, I'm nervous about myself. It shouldn't happen to me. What happened to Sanhedrin? Remember, Sanhedrin didn't break down the walls. He went to sleep and he never woke up, or he woke up, but his army never woke up. So Nebuzaradan was actually going to turn back. But Nafka Kala, a voice came out from Shemayim and said to him, Amar, no. Shavar bar Shavar. Shavar usually means the person is tzarat, right? So you, the one who's afflicted, Doleg ben bar Doleg, get up, is one interpretation. Nebuzaradan. You, Nebuzaradan, Shavar dimta zimna. You should go and break it down. Unfortunately, the time has come for the Beit HaMikdash to be destroyed. It's over. He had one axe left behind. And he hit the door, not even with the sharp part, with the kupa is with the wood part, with the back of it, right? The flat part. The iftach, and the door opened up. Shenemar yivada kemevin lamala b'svach eitz kardumot. You're as if one hitting it above with the svach eitz, with the wood part of the kardom, meaning you don't even need to use the metal part, you use the wood part to get the door open. So they got the door open, and Nebuzaradan comes in with his army. Havikata va'azal, he's going ahead through the whole city of Yerushalayim and killing all the people. Where am I? Havikata va'azal, he's coming and he's killing all the people. Ad demata lehechala, he gets to the hechal, to the Beit HaMikdash. Idlek benura, he lights it on fire. Gava Hechala, as soon as he lights it on fire, the Hechal starts lifting up to run away. Basically, the Hechal didn't want to be destroyed. So whatever that means, the spirit of the Hechal was lifted up. Says the Gemara, Darchu Be Min Shammai, they stepped on the Hechal from heaven to prevent it from running away so that it would be burned up. Shnemar Gat Darach Hashem Zat Bat Yudas. We say in the pasuk in Eicha that in Gat they stood. Darach Hashem. Darach means they Hashem stood on it basically to prevent it from going away. So then Nebuzaradan got haughty. He was like, "Oh, I can win. I can do anything. Look how successful I am. I've killed Yerushalayim. I've destroyed the Heichal." Says Nafka Bakta. Another voice came out from heaven, V'amrali, and said to him, "Don't be so proud of yourself. Amma Ketila Katal. You killed a dead nation. Heichala Kalya Kalat. It was a burned Heichal that you burned. Meaning it was a Heichal, but it was empty. It was devoid of meaning and of practice, and you didn't really succeed in anything. They were already gone. Kimcha techina techint. It's like you're what's it called? Grinding flour, right? Usually you grind grain to make it flour. It was already flour. It was already destroyed, meaning spiritually. Shenemar kichiri chaim etachani kemach, as the pasuk says in Yeshayo, take a rechaim and grind flour. What do you mean grind flour, right? Well, let's read the end of the pasuk though. Galit samatech chespi Shoval gali sok ivri naharot. And the pasuk continues, right? Uncover your hair and pick up your train of your clothing and uncover your legs, gali shok, and go over the river in mourning. But says the Gemara, chidim lo nemar. It doesn't say grind chidim ela kemach, grind flour. It's a mashal to what happened in the Beit HaMikdash. Now Chaza, we're at the star around halfway down, maybe not quite. Nebuzaradan saw Damya de Zechari Dabikaratach. Right, this is a very famous kina that we read on Eicha. He saw the blood of Zechariah, which was boiling on the floor of the Beit HaMikdash. Remember, Zechariah being killed. So he saw the blood of Zechariah was there and never had quieted down. Amarlu, so he said to the priests, to the Kohanim, my hi, what's going on here? He said, oh, they lied. They said, Dam svachim udishtabech. No, it's a sacrifice. He said, I don't really trust you. Let's bring an animal, let's slaughter it and test the blood and see if it looks the same way. We'll check if it's similar. So Kasi, they did it below Idmu, and of course was not similar. Amarlu, so he said to them, listen, you better tell me what's going on. Galuli, reveal to me what's going on with this blood. Below, and if you don't tell me, I will comb your flesh. And what it says, about Rabbi Akiva, I will comb your flesh with these steel combs, right? So they said to him, okay, the truth is, hi, Kohen ben Avihu, right? This Zechariah was a Kohen and an Avi, and Imbulu Yisrael b'Churbanat Yerushalayim. He told Bnei Yisrael that we were misbehaving and that there was going to be a Churban coming, and we killed him, B'Katzlu, and we killed him, and his blood stayed boiling for 100 years. Amarlu, so he said to them, well, I will make up for it. You guys were awful to your prophet. I will get his revenge. Ana mefaisinale. I will make sure that his blood is avenged. So Aiti Rabbanan, so he brought the rabbis, Katil Alai, he killed them all. Lonach, the blood didn't stop. Aiti Darjik Rav, so he brought the children. He said, this will for sure be a forgiveness. Katil Alai, he killed them all. Lonach, it didn't stop boiling. Aiti Pirchikuna, he brought the Kohanim, the young Kohanim, the ones in training, the ones who were pure. Katil, he killed them all. Lonach, right? Nothing caused it to stop. Adi Katil Tishin Rabba Ribo, he killed 94,000 or 940,000 people. Velonach, the blood did not stop. Karav legabe, so finally Nebuzaradan came over towards the blood. Amar, he said, Zechariah, Tovim shebani badatim, I've killed everyone, I've killed the best people, the Kohanim, the children, the Talmidei Chachamim, Nichalach de'ektalilakul, do you really want me to keep killing and killing on your behalf until there's no more people? Miyad nach, then the blood stopped boiling. Remember, this is as I said, it's a kina. We read this whole story from this Gemara and other midrashim in the kina on Eicha on Tisha B'av. Says the Gemara, but then Nebuzaradan started having second thoughts. He said, "Wait a second. I killed so many people. The people of Bnei Yisrael killed Zechariah, one person, and they got this punishment that tens of thousands of people were killed. What's going to happen to me?" So says the Gemara here, tshuva b'dateh. We're in the first wide line now, the middle of the line. He said, I regret everything I've done. He thought of tshuva. Amrei said, Ma'hem shalibdul nefesh achat kach. They only killed one person, Zechariah, and they lost the whole country. Ahu gavra, me. And it was Aradam, what's going to happen to me? Arak. So he basically ran away. He left the army. Shadar porte lebeit, he sent a message to his house, which they say is like a last will, like, take care of my possessions. Bitgayer, and he became a Jew. And Tanura Banan, this is in fact the Braita, which is why we're quoting this, the second line, that Naaman, remember Naaman, who was from Aram, who was healed of his tzarat by Elisha, right? He Ger Toshav, he became a Ger Toshav, meaning he stopped worshiping Avodah Zarah. Nebuzaradan, the protagonist of this story, he was a Ger Tzedekah. He actually became Jewish. He converted as a real Jew. Mibnei Banav Shel Sisro, now the great grandchildren of Sisro, Limdu Torah b'Yushalayim. They, in fact, were teachers of Torah in Yerushalayim. And Bnei Banav Shel Sanhedrin, the great descendants, children of Sanhedrin, Limdu Torah b'Rabim. They taught Torah in public. Umaninu Shmaya and Naftalion. Shmaya and Naftalion came from Sanhedrin. And Bnei Banav Shel Haman, Limdu Torah b'Bnei Brak. Descendants of Haman became Jewish and they taught Torah in Bnei Brak. And even the children, the grandsons of that Rasha, Torah Rasha refers to Nebuchadnezzar here, who destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. They wanted, Hashem wanted to bring them close to. to under the Shechina. The messengers, that the angel said to God, well, how could that be? ריבונו של עולם, מי שהחריב את ביתך ושרף את היכלך, תכניס תחת כנפי השכינה? The ones who destroyed your house, burned your Beit HaMikdash, you're going to bring them to the Shechina? And this is what the pasuk is referring to when it says in Yirmiyahu, Rifinu et Bavel v'nirpata. We tried to heal Bavel, but it was not healed. Meaning, Ula Omar Zen Nebuchadnezzar. Ula says this is referring to Nebuchadnezzar, that there was an attempt to bring him back into the fold, and the Malachei Ashari didn't let it happen, so it was not healed. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Achmini said, no, these are referring to Elo Naharot Bavel. This is referring to the waters of Bavel, which never became sweet again. Where am I? B'Tergamu, and the explanation of this basically is Sinyata Sridata de Bavlai. There's bitter, salty water of Bavel that they tried to make pure again, I guess, and they were not able to. Okay, so Rashi says there are these bitter dikalim that stand on the water, and that they never can make it better. Continue the Gemara.
Gotta go to shul. I have to go to shul.
We've got to go to shul, but we got to finish the daf. So I'm gonna keep reading. You can listen to the recording if you can't stick around. Where are we up to though? It'll be 5 minutes, but I understand if you got to go. Ula Amar. Ula said, Elon Nebuchadnezzar. I already did that. Sorry. Next line. Amar Ula. Ammon uMoav shivavi bishid Yerushalayim havi. Ammon and Moab were not very good neighbors of Yerushalayim. Remember, Ammon and Moab are to the sort of east of Israel, right? And kivan deshamino the Nevi'eh, the kamitnavi the Churban Yerushalayim. Once they heard the Nevi'im, like Yirmiyahu and others, and Zechariah, saying that Yerushalayim is going to be destroyed, Shalchul Nebuchadnezzar, they sent a message to Nebuchadnezzar and said, "Come, we need your power." Puk v'ta. So calling a foreign power in, come and destroy them. Amar, so Nebuchadnezzar said, I'm not going to Yerushalayim. Mistafina, I don't want to happen to me what happened to my previous people, like Sanhedrin. So they sent a message. These are all psukim from this is from Mishlei. The man is not in the house, meaning God left Yerushalayim. Halach b'derech merachok. Hashem went far away. The man is Hashem. Hashem ish milchama. So Nebuchadnezzar sent back and said, well, maybe God left them, but God will come back. They'll cry out to Hashem, they'll do tshuva, and Hashem will come back. Shalach lo, he said, no. God went really far away. God is not coming back to save Yerushalayim. Shalach lo, so Nebuchadnezzar said back, but there could be tzaddikim who will come and ask God, and God will come back. So they sent the message, God took the tzor, the bundle of kesef, meaning all the righteous people, in kesef el tzadikim, whatever the reference is. So they basically said that there's no good righteous people, God has abandoned them, now is your chance, Nebuchadnezzar, to come and destroy Yerushalayim. Nebuchadnezzar was still not convinced. He said, what do you mean? Hadri Yoshi b'tshuva, even if the people are bad, they can do tshuva. No daven, Hashem will come back. So they sent the message and said, the Nevi'im have said, Kvar kava lehem zman. God already set up the time. On the day of the Kesa, the day of the Kesa is referring to the time, the appointed time, the house will come down. Ein Kesa el zman, shnamar b'kesa yom chagenu. So Shalach Lu, so he said to them, well, I don't want to come. This is Nebuchadnezzar. Sitfuho. It's the winter, right? It's the winter. I don't want to come from the teleg, the rain, the snow and the rain. Shochl, they said, well, no, don't worry. There's ways to come where there's no rain. Ta Ashina Datura, come on the heads of the mountains where the rain doesn't pull, and therefore there's no puddles. Shenamar Shilchu Kar Moshel Eretz Misela Midbaral Harbat Zion, which is just a reference coming on the har, on the mountain. Shalach lei, so Nebuchadnezzar said, Iatina, if I come to Yerushalayim, let the duchta diatvibe. Where am I gonna live? Where am I gonna, there's no homes, there's no shelter, there's no protection for me to have my army. Shalchulei, so they sent back to him and said, no. Kivrot shalahem, the graves and the mausoleums and the caves of the people, mu'ulim mipaltrin shalcha, they're nicer than your castles. And that's why the pasuk says, very strange pasuk in Yirmiyahu, at that time, God says, Yotziot atzmot malchei Yehuda v'tatzmot Sarah v'tatzmot haKohanim v'tatzmot haNeviim v'tatzmot Yoshvei Yerushalayim mikivreihem. They'll take out all the bones from the kings and the Sarim and the Kohanim and the Nevi'im and the people, and they'll shatchum l'shemesh v'yirech, they'll throw them out under the sun and the moon, after they worshipped those gods. And so basically, we'll stop here, but basically they convinced Nebuchadnezzar that they can use the space and the built-up areas from the graves in order to use them as place to keep his army so that he could come and conquer Yerushalayim. And so essentially, again, all these midrashim about what happened when he came to Yerushalayim, and we will stop here because it actually is the end of the sugya and continue tomorrow with further Agarata as we get closer and closer to Mashiach coming and the end of days. So Yasher Koach, I know it's a lot of Agarata. Hope everyone enjoyed. Have a wonderful week.